let's get right into it. Number 10. The Barber-Surgeon. Your local barber pulls out a saw instead of scissors. No, this isn't a horror movie. It's just Tuesday in medieval Europe. Welcome to the world of medieval barber-surgeons, where your stylist was also your emergency room doctor. These guys were the ultimate medieval multitaskers. Need a tooth pulled, they got you. Want a stylish new haircut, no problem. Arm needs to come off, they'll take care of that too. The same razor that shaped your beard might later be used to amputate someone's leg. Did you ever wonder why barber poles are red and white? The red stripe represents blood. They'd hang bloody bandages outside their shops to dry, which would twist in the wind, creating that spiral pattern we know today. But these guys made bank. When you're the only person in town who can stop someone from bleeding out or remove a rotting tooth, you can pretty much name your price. King Henry VIII was so impressed, he actually made them an official guild in 1540. Imagine that job interview. What are your qualifications? Well, I'm really good at bowl cuts and battlefield amputations. Perfect. You're hired. They even had mobile services, flying barbers, who'd travel from town to town. Like a food truck, but for surgery and haircuts instead of tacos. Number 9. Tyrian purple dyer. 250,000 snails died for one royal outfit, and someone had to crush every single one of them. This wasn't just any purple dye. This was the purple, the one that emperors and kings would literally kill to wear, but making it was absolutely disgusting. Want to know how many snails it took to dye just one royal toga? 250,000 snails. That's right, 250,000 snails crushed to make one outfit. The smell was so horrific it would clear out an entire neighborhood. Imagine standing there all day, crushing snails in the hot Mediterranean sun, surrounded by rotting shellfish and toxic fumes. Most dye workshops were banned from city limits, but this purple dye was worth more than its weight in gold. Only emperors and the super wealthy could afford it. If you were caught wearing this purple and weren't royalty, you could get executed. Fashion police actually existed, and they weren't joking around. These dyers were basically walking around with liquid gold. 1 ounce of purple dye cost more than what a skilled worker made in 3 years, and people were willing to pay it. Number 8. The Augur. Sorry, General. The chickens said no war today. This was an actual conversation that happened in ancient Rome. These guys weren't your average bird watchers with binoculars and a field guide. They were more like cosmic middlemen between the gods and humans, using birds as their divine telephone line. Imagine being a tough Roman general, ready to lead your army into battle, but then some guy in fancy robes goes, "Sorry, chief. The eagles are flying left instead of right today. Guess you'll have to cancel the whole invasion." And the general would actually have to call it off. These guys even had their own special chicken coop for official government birds, like there were actual sacred chickens on Rome's payroll. The augurs would feed these chickens and watch how they ate their grain. If the chickens ate enthusiastically, it was a good sign. If they refused to eat, that was basically ancient Rome's version of a red flag. One Roman commander actually got so mad at the chickens for not eating that he threw them into the sea. He was like, "If they won't eat, let them drink." Spoiler alert, he lost the battle spectacularly. That's what you get for not listening to the government-approved chickens. This was considered one of the most prestigious jobs in Rome. You could literally make or break someone's career by saying, "The birds don't like you." Number 7. The Armpit Plucker. The screaming you hear in the Roman bathhouse isn't someone being murdered. It's just Tuesday at the armpit plucking station. Welcome to one of the weirdest jobs in ancient Rome, the Armpit Plucker, or as fancy Romans called them, the Allipolis. These people made bank by yanking out armpit hair, one strand at a time. Their entire career was built on pulling hair out of sweaty armpits. In ancient Rome, having smooth armpits was like wearing designer clothes today. It screamed, "I'm rich enough to pay someone to torture me." These pluckers were so common in bathhouses that the philosopher Seneca actually complained about their constant noise. Just imagine the pluck, pluck, pluck sound mixing with all the gossip and deal-making. Both men and women were lining up for this torture, because in Rome, if you had armpit hair, you were basically advertising that you were broke. These armpit pluckers were making more money than most skilled laborers. Some of them even had appointment books filled months in advance. People were literally scheduling their armpit torture sessions like we book dentist appointments. Number 6. The Water Scribe. Turn off a senator's water and watch him beg. That was just another day at the office for Rome's water scribes. These guys weren't just fancy plumbers. They were the kingpins of Rome's most valuable resource. In a city of 1 million people, whoever controls the water controls everything. They had the power to inspect any building, any time, looking for illegal water connections. Rich people would try to bribe them to look the other way, when they installed secret pipes to their private baths. But the water scribes could make more money by catching these cheaters than by taking bribes. You could walk into a senator's house, point at their fancy fountain, and say, "That's not supposed to be there," and the senator couldn't do anything about it. These guys were like ancient detectives with unlimited power. They had teams of inspectors crawling through tunnels, measuring water flow, and hunting down water thieves. The job was so profitable that people would literally kill for it, and some did. More than a few water scribes met mysterious ends when they couldn't be bought. But the smart ones played both sides, taking just enough bribes to get rich while busting enough cheaters to keep their reputation. They were basically running a protection racket with government approval. Try to cheat the system, and you're drinking from the Tiber River. Number 5. Professional mourner. 50 strangers are sobbing at your funeral, and they're all on the payroll. Welcome to the bizarre world of professional mourning. These professional mourners, called praefici in ancient Rome, were like the rock stars of grief. The more dramatic your performance, the more you got paid. The richest families would hire entire squads of these crying performers. It was basically a grief competition, because nothing says "I was important" like having 50 people dramatically wailing behind your coffin. They even had something called an archimime, basically a professional impersonator. This person would walk in front of the coffin, acting exactly like the dead person used to. Imagine watching someone perfectly copy your dead uncle's weird laugh and signature walk. In Egypt, the elite mourners had to shave their entire bodies, get tattoos of goddess names, and couldn't have kids. Your entire life revolved around crying for dead strangers, and this job still exists today. There are companies in Britain that will rent you professional mourners for $30 to $120 per cry session. It's like hiring actors, but specifically for tears at your relative's funeral. Number 4. Ice harvester. These guys shipped frozen water from Boston to India in the 1800s without refrigeration. Before refrigerators existed, rich people still wanted their drinks cold, and they were willing to pay insane money for it. We're talking about shipping ice from America all the way to places like India. These ice harvesters would walk out onto frozen lakes in the dead of winter. One wrong step and you're swimming with the fishes permanently. First, they'd score the ice in a grid pattern, kind of like cutting a giant frozen chocolate bar. Then they'd use massive saws to cut out blocks weighing hundreds of pounds. Imagine trying to move a block of ice the size of your refrigerator while standing on more ice. One slip, and that block could crush you instantly. The horses themselves were wearing special spiked horseshoes just to avoid slipping and causing chaos. But these guys made more money in 3 months than most people made in a year. They were the daredevils of the food industry. High risk, high reward, and absolutely insane working conditions. Some of them got so rich, they built actual mansions from ice money. The whole industry was worth millions, which is billions in today's money. And all this from cutting up frozen water and hoping you don't die in the process. Number 3. The Nomenclator. Know everyone's dirty secrets, get paid like a king, even though you're technically a slave. Picture this. You're a Roman politician at a crowded party, and you spot someone important heading your way. Your mind goes blank. That's when your Nomenclator leans in and whispers, "That's Marcus. His wife just left him for a gladiator, and he's looking to fund a new war in Greece." These guys had to memorize everything about everyone. Not just names, but family trees, scandals, business deals, and political allegiances. They were like ancient Google, but for gossip and power plays. But one wrong whisper, one mixed-up name, and both the Nomenclator and their master could end up in serious trouble. We're talking career-ending, exile to a remote island kind of trouble. These guys were technically slaves, yet they were some of the highest-paid slaves in Rome. When you know everyone's dirty secrets, people tend to be pretty generous with their coins. Some nomenclators got so good at their job, they could spot potential assassins just by remembering who hated who. They were like ancient bodyguards with photographic memories. These guys were basically walking through a minefield made of people's feelings. One wrong step, and everything explodes. Number 2. Gladiator. Women collected their sweat and used it as face cream. And that's not even the weirdest part about being a gladiator. That's exactly what happened to Spiculus, one of Rome's most legendary gladiators. These guys weren't just fighters. They were the rock stars of ancient Rome. Their faces were plastered all over pottery and walls, like ancient billboards. Women would literally throw themselves at successful gladiators. Some would even collect gladiator sweat and use it as perfume or face cream. But not all gladiators were forced into it. Some free men actually volunteered for this career path. Imagine walking into a job interview where death is listed in the job description. These guys lived like professional athletes with personal doctors, masseurs, and special diets. Each gladiator had their own fighting style and signature look. You had guys like the Mourner, rocking a massive shield and short sword, basically the human tank. Then there was the Retiarius, fighting with just a net and trident, basically bringing a fishing rod to a sword fight. Most matches didn't end in death. It was more like extreme sports with actual weapons and real consequences. When a gladiator lost, they'd do this dramatic surrender pose, raising a finger. Then the crowd would go wild, deciding his fate. Thumbs up meant live. Thumbs down meant, well, you know. And if you made it big like Spiculus, you could end up with your own palace, fan club, and enough gold to buy your freedom 10 times over. Number 1. Groom of the Stool. The king is on the toilet, you're holding the paper, and somehow, you're the second most powerful person in the kingdom. This wasn't just some regular bathroom attendant. This guy had the king's ear during his most vulnerable moments. You're alone with the most powerful person in the country while they're doing their business. That's prime time to whisper some suggestions about who should be promoted or who's plotting against the crown. These guys got rich. We're talking mansions, land grants, and enough gold to start your own kingdom. Some grooms of the stool became wealthier than dukes and earls. They were also the king's personal banker, handling private expenses, and even giving out political favors. And because you're monitoring the king's daily routine, you're basically tracking his health too. Suddenly you're not just a bathroom assistant, you're the royal health advisor. Noble families would actually fight for this position. They would push their sons to become the royal toilet attendant because it guaranteed wealth and power. The craziest part is, this job existed all the way until 1901. Queen Victoria was like, yeah, maybe we don't need someone to help us use the bathroom anymore. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.